Do I need some volume? Everybody can hear me in the back? We're here today to pay tribute to one of the great New Orleans piano players, and what better way to do it with two of the other great New Orleans piano players. Of course, there have been many great New Orleans piano players, going back to the days of Jelly Roll Morton, up through Professor Longhair, Fats Domino, and today we're going to be paying tribute to James Carroll Booker III. We've been having his music playing as you all came in. In a moment, we're going to bring up our distinguished guests. I'm just going to tell you very, very briefly about James Booker. He was born in New Orleans in 1939. We got a little bit of a feedback or ring in the mix there. He was born in New Orleans in 1939. As a young child, he was already showing signs of being a prodigy. And at an early age, and I will consult my notes here, hopefully not read you my grocery list, he began playing radio station WMRY. He was going there as a young child of around 10 or 11 years old. And at the same time, so was one of today's distinguished guests, who will appear shortly, Mr. Allen Toussaint. And his performances, James Booker's performances on WMRY, led him to the attention of Dave Bartholomew, one of the great impresarios, arrangers, and producers of New Orleans music, the man who wrote and produced many of Fats Domino's big records. And he cut a record on James Booker when Booker was 14 or 15 years old called Hambone, which is something you should make an effort to hear if you could. And I would like to also add that there's an excellent tribute to James Booker, which was broadcast on WWOZ within the past year or so, produced by David Cunian. Many people have taped it, and I would recommend to all of you to try and get a copy. It's not going to be available commercially because of all the legal entanglements with the songs being the property of different record companies, but it's well worth hearing, and it's in the community. It's something you should check out. Now, James Booker, after he had this first record with Hambone, he went to college. He enrolled in Southern University, but he quit school, and he was performing around New Orleans. He also began recording. He was hanging around Cosimo Matas's legendary recording studio down on Rampart Street. This is in the late 50s, and this is where he hung out with our other distinguished guest, Mr. Mac Rebenak, Dr. John. We're going to get both of them to talk about their memories of Booker. To briefly sum up Booker's career, he had one hit under his own name in the early 60s, an instrumental record called Gonzo. He was known as a session musician. He played with everyone from Bobby Blue Bland to B.B. King, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, the Doobie Brothers, Ringo Starr, the Grateful Dead. He died quite young at the age of 43. He has a pretty extensive body of recordings. And we're going to discuss his work and his music, his virtuosic ability, his combination of New Orleans blues roots with quite literally the technique of classical composers such as Frédéric Chopin. But most of that discussion, almost all of it, will be led by Mr. Allen Toussaint, who's coming to the stage now. And our other distinguished guest, New Orleans favorite, Dr. John. Now, we are doing this in a totally spontaneous frame of mind here. So would you all like to start with some music? Would you like to start with some reminiscences of Booker? What do you think, Mr. Toussaint? Now, when y'all play that, what memories of James Booker come to you when you play a piece like that?
You know, everything in my head is memories of James Booker. You know, he's not like somebody that you lose memories of. It's it sticks like good sauce on some good ribs.
I hear you.
You know, it's like I think of Booker at Cosmos Studio when we was little weed hoppers, and he'd sit down and play all them tunes. All of it, whether it was Camille Howard's songs or Lord Glenn or whoever's songs he felt like playing, he'd kill them.
I got you. And he throws in some classical stuff there too from time to time. Right?
Oh yeah, he'd come do his piano lessons before he would do what myself and Marcel Richardson and some other guys, we would be hanging around there, and but he'd play his piano lessons first back then.
Right. And you guys both were doing sessions at Cosmos in the late 50s and early 60s.
Yeah, well,
correct?
he was playing them long before I did. In fact, he was the reason I met Allen Toussaint.
Well, and here y'all are again. And you go way back with James Booker to days of WMRY, maybe further back than that.
Well, Booker was 12 when I first met him, and I was 13. That's what I heard him say it, but when he played the piano, I think he was 40. Even at 12 years old, he could sit down and play Bach's three-part inventions, but not handling it like a cat, but with all the sophistication that Bach would have been proud of.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And then in the middle of that, he might just go into something completely different and then come back again, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But he could take it to the completion too. He played around, but when it's time to be serious, he could take it to the end in whatever category.
Right. Well, I mean, that was that kind of ability that made him a studio guy very young, and I think he even played on some of Fats Domino's early records, as good a piano player as Fats was, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he was playing sessions, and he did everything that studio musicians did, and he had another side to him. You know, he could do a thing with music that inspired other guys. I know he inspired Allen and me. I know that.
Yes.
He inspired a lot of the cats.
I got you. Well, what we're going to try and get to today was the different periods of time when you all worked with James Booker. I know he played on many of your sessions in the 1970s, and at the same time he was in your band in the 1970s. So I just wanted to get you all to reminisce about James Booker and play some of the music from the different periods. Maybe you could start with some of the things that you all might play together back at Cosimos back in the early days.
Well, I always think of the very first session I ever played with James Booker with Earl Palmer, and he recorded the song for Huey Smith later. It was called Roberta, when it was originally Love Berta, but when we recorded for Eddie Messner in the early 50s, it was Pine Town's Boogie, the way Booker played it, and it was always something that stuck with me, you know.
I got you. wanted to add one quick word of explanation here. When we're talking up here about Cosimos studio, we're referring to a studio that was run by a man named Cosimo Matassa, who is still here in New Orleans. And this was one of the great studios where many of the great New Orleans rhythm and blues records were recorded, I believe from the late 40s up through the early 60s. Would that be about right, that period? Does that sound good to you? But
I wasn't born in the 40s. I don't know.
You know, I wasn't either. Not gonna. But at that time, that was one of the great studios. So for those of you from out of town, that's what we're talking about. And James Booker went out on the road with many of the artists who recorded for Cosimo back in those days before television. Artists didn't always feel like touring, and James Booker often went out and performed as Huey Smith, and audiences didn't know better. Huey Smith and the Clowns are one of the big groups that recorded at Cosimos at that time for Ace Records, and had hits like Don't You Just Know It, things like that were on your Gumbo album. But let's talk some more about Booker's career as it progressed. Mr. Toussaint, of course, is one of the great producers, really, of contemporary music, and used James Booker as a session player on a variety of different projects. And I was wondering if you could talk a little about what it was like to have James Booker in the studio when you needed a special part or a flavor put in a song, and how his creative process would work for that.
Well, Booker's greatness was wanted and sought out by many people, including myself. And it so happened, however, he would have been around with me a whole lot more if he played a different instrument.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes. But when he played on sessions with me, he played organ, and he was a fine organist. He could not only play the organ, the B3s and things like that most of the jazz players and the most conventional music and musicians played, but he also could play the pipe organ, these large, grand organs with all these buttons. And Booker, he had this grasp. Booker was a genius in more than one way. His comprehension level was higher than average also.
Right.
So when he saw all these drawbars that would imitate most people, it was no problem for him because his scruples were so high.
I got you.
And he could just pull it off.
And a pipe organ even has a delay between the action of the note being played and the actual note coming out of the instrument. So you'd even have to anticipate the delay and everything.
You have to believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Exactly. All right. I know one of my favorite albums of yours that he played on is sort of an obscure album, but a great one from the mid-'70s called A Good Feeling by William D. Smith.
Oh, yes. He was wonderful on that.
And I know Booker really enhanced that one quite a bit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, speaking of dual keyboard players, now he was in your band as an organist, and then sometimes you would play guitar, sometimes you would play piano. How did that all work out?
Well, Booker, when he came in the band, he had just left the road with Marvin Gaye. He had been doing some charts with Joe Texas band and doing a lot of like contribution to those acts. So when he came in, he had a lot of charts in his mind. He wrote a lot of really hip arrangements that I knew Booker was a good arranger from back in the game, but I didn't. He had never written something for my band, and it stuck with the band. A lot of stuff that I played to this day came out of some stuff that Booker did, like Goodnight Irene. Right. The way we do this tune, it came out of Booker's. Originally, it was Booker doing My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean with a shuffle groove. Right. And later he started doing Goodnight Irene, My Bonnie, and some other tunes. Right. But he wrote so many hip charts during the time.
And when you say wrote charts, not just for the keyboards, but for the whole band, the horns band. And everything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He wrote great, really, really hip horn arrangements and, just the whole thing.
I got you. Maybe you could give him a little taste of Goodnight Irene just to show how he did it. Does that sound like an idea? course, Goodnight Irene is a song that goes back even further in the Louisiana music tradition, back to Leadbelly, the great blues guitar player from North Louisiana. Now, I wanted to get you all to talk a little bit about Booker the person, his sense of humor, and his personality. In the WWOZ tribute, Thorny Penfield talked about him having a metaphysical wit and a sense of humor, a great talker on a lot of different subjects. So we can talk a little bit about Booker, the man, and his personality, and the type of things y'all would talk about.
I think Booker was a true felonist. The man, he really loved knowledge of all sorts. Sometimes Booker would come to me, at least I would go down to maybe a place where he was performing as a solo, and he would take a break when he saw me. Even if he was in the middle of a song and people sitting around the piano, he'd just get up and walk off and take a break. And one time he did that, and we walked around the quarters for a while, and he told me that there was this German, a set of German information that wasn't translated to English, so he was going to study some German for a while in order to read one or two books. And he did learn enough German to read what he wanted to read, and after that, no more. And for the next maybe 6 months to a year, he was telling me things in German, and he gave himself a German name, Volkszelden or something Mac may know. But amazing man.
You got some stories like that?
Well, I think, Booker was such a genius. The whole time he played my band, didn't know until some way late in the game that he was writing for a newspaper in Mississippi. He was writing an article every week or two. And he was going to play, every time he'd get off the road, he was going to a seminary in Mississippi and playing all of the stuff from our book with some more appropriate lyrics.
I got you. Now, you and Booker played for a long time, or you traded off your alternated sets, I guess, at a couple of places like the Poodle Patio and Francine's.
Yes, we did that 365 days a year, 12 hours a night. And it was right after Booker had cut Gonzo, and he had a great band with Ralph Johnson and Charlie Williams. Hungry and Booker and Ralph Johnson was quite a trio. And actually, they had a bigger band at Papa Joe's in those days, but we would alternate those gigs. And my joy of that gig was when we take a break so the music didn't stop, we'd have to switch organ in the middle of a tune. And I got to learn a lot of Booker's tunes from that, and it was a real learning, because Booker taught me to play organ. He took me to Werlein's when Junior Conforto bought 3 organs for the clubs, and actually said, "I'm going to teach you to play organ." He got me off of this Dixieland gig I was playing bass on. He knew I wasn't happy, and he got me to play my first official keyboard gig. So I was so intimidated around guys like Allen and Booker and, Huey Smith that I just figured I'd stay playing the guitar, but it didn't go down that way.
Well, I think we're all glad it didn't, right?
Right. However, just for the record,
yes,
Mac is not just another guitarist when he does play the guitar. He's a very special guitarist.
Yeah.
Very special.
You played guitar on Professor Longhair's last album, I believe, didn't you? Crawfish Fiesta?
Yes, I did a lot of stuff with Longhair, and a lot of stuff with Allen, and a lot of stuff with Booker, and Huey Smith, but
couldn't really talk about New Orleans piano without some Professor Long here in there too. I was going to ask either one of y'all, whichever it comes to, what do you think, now that Booker's been gone about 15 years, what do you think his contribution is as far as, the people that are playing now and what he contributed to New Orleans piano?
Well, personally, I hear a lot of Booker in a lot of the cats today. Whether it's Harry Connick Jr., whether it's Art Neville, whether it's Allen Toussaint, whether it's Mac Rabenack, whoever I'm listening to, I hear a lot of Booker.
I'm glad you put my name in there, Mac.
Look, it's the same thing that Booker, you, me, all what do we do in between takes in sessions for many years was play Tipitina.
Oh, yes.
And all of us did this, and I don't care if it was Huey Smith, we all did it different in our own little way.
But we did it in F.
Yes.
Always in F.
Because that was whose key. And that's what New Orleans is about. We respect and love the music and our roots and our heritage. And Booker was a prime example of what it's about.
Okay, great. I'm not sure how much time we have left here. We'd like to encourage some questions. And I don't know, it would probably only be practical from just the first couple of rows here. But if anyone does have any questions you'd like to ask, either Mr. Rabenack or Mr. Toussaint, I don't know if we're going to be able to hear you from back there. Or this, we may just have to keep this musically. I don't think that's going to work. But we had some requests for someone to sing something. We haven't really talked about Booker, the vocalist, because a very soulful, emotional singer. Maybe we go into that a little bit.
Interesting. Booker singing. When I first heard Booker sing, because as a young child he played all the time. I didn't hear him singing much until later on. And when I did hear him sing, it was a surprise, almost a shock to me. Even though I know he could play all that romping barrel house piano, I didn't expect his voice. I didn't expect him to choose that route because innately Booker had spirit like everyone else. However, he could go many places. He had lots of things at his disposal. So I didn't know what his vocal would be like before he started singing. When I first heard him, I was quite surprised. I didn't know it was going there, and it took me a while to accept it as a fact that this is how Booker will present himself.
Right. And he embellished his vocals almost like an instrument. I mean, he tacked 10 syllables onto a word and that type of thing.
Well, one of the things I discovered, Booker used to open gigs for me before I would hit the bandstand. Booker, he all of a sudden one night started singing some Ray Charles tunes and some Little Richard tunes, and all of a sudden he started, at some point of doing that, starting playing tunes that were like maybe a slow shuffle and playing them in 12/8 or some rhythm that threw the whole band off for a minute. And it was like a revelation when he was singing tunes that was written a whole other bag. Then later when he got back to New Orleans and started singing on gigs a lot, he started doing that kind of thing a lot. So I was a little bit prepared for it, but it was originally a tremendous surprise to me too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a really soulful singer. A lot of his personality came through a lot.
You just wouldn't imagine a person that sings like that and could play Rachmaninoff perfectly.
No, you wouldn't. No. No. What are some of the songs I think that are most... Black Knight, was that one he used to do a lot?
Well, he did a lot of Charles Brown songs. He did a lot of Ray Charles songs. And I used to encourage him to do those because I was so partial to those songs personally.
Yeah.
But he just did them really sweet.
Yeah. You think you could give him a little bit of Black Knight or one of those kind of tunes?
too. Don't know why I'm living, baby, since I done lost you. Black night is falling. Oh, I hate to be alone. Oh, now I keep crying for my baby. But now another day is gone.
Nobody cares about me, ain't even got a friend. Bad luck and trouble overtook me. When will my troubles end? Black nights are falling. Oh, how I hate to be alone. I keep crying for my baby, but not another day. Ooh, it's gone.
I had an idea for another song that Booker sang a lot. If y'all feel like playing a Junco Partner, that'd be one of his. Anything you'd want to say about that song? Or I know it goes way back in the New Orleans tradition.
I think it goes even further back in Angola tradition.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, as long as I can remember bands played that song in New Orleans, it was always a request tune, and I think somewhere along the line, Booker kind of took it as a sort of a theme.
Yeah. But Archibald had cut that, didn't he, at one time, I think?
No, Wee Willie Wayne recorded it, Louis Jordan recorded it. A lot of other people recorded. I recorded, but me and Allen recorded it, and it's one of them New Orleans standby tunes.
Yeah, and definitely a James Booker standby tune too.
Oh, yes.
Well, I think it was like his theme or call to arms or
Yeah.
something.
So to speak, huh?
His anthem.
Yes.
Yep.
Mac does a good job of Junco Partner.
Yeah.
We all do a hell of a job of Junco Partner.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. You want us to do a little bit?
Would you? Yeah.
That's it. road come a junkie partner. He was loaded as can be. He was knocked out knocked out loaded, and he wobbled all over the street. Singing 6 months ain't no sentence. You know 1 year ain't no time. They got boys up on the Ponderosa in Angola. The 99. If I had $1 million, just 1 million to come on, I should buy all the land around this racetrack. I'd plow me a marijuana farm. Lord, he was loaded as can be. You know he was knocked out, loaded. And he wobbled on down the street. Down the road, now come a junkie partner. He was loaded as can be. He was knocked out, loaded. Lord, and he sang this old dope fiend song to me.
Oh, I think Booker would love that. I think he would have loved that. I'm trying to keep an eye on our time now, but I'm just wondering if there are any other reminiscences about Booker or things that either of y'all would want to say about him or want the people here today to know about him.
I'm gonna just mention this. I think it was 2 days ago, somebody gave me a CD with Aretha singing. It's Mr. Spain CD, and it's got Booker's song "So Swell, Baby, When You Well, But You Just Stay Sick So Long."
Oh,
on it.
yes.
And it really touched me to my heart thinking of Booker. Hearing that song, it just brought me back to another time and place. And I'm really grateful whoever gave me the CD of Mr. Spain. Just to hear Booker's song, it really touched my heart.
I got you. Oh, we have a question?
Booker, which one to buy? First one you see, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm really serious about
That sounds good.
And the second and the third and the fourth.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's real.
Anything else you could say, Mr. Toussaint, Matt Booker? I think that's about all we have time for today. I was wrong. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you. Dr. John McRavenack and Mr. Allen Toussaint. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out to Music Heritage. We have some more great music for you shortly. Some a cappella gospel singing with the Zion Travelers from Baton Rouge. So please stick around. Thank you very much.